Do you want to see too? I have you on. Do you want to see also?
All right. Hi, everybody. I recognize some names, but many I don't. My name is Nichtern, and this is the overview and info session in preparation for the Yearlong Buddhist Studies program, which is Tuesday nights. And there's also a monthly ongoing Saturdays group for people who want to join, which tends to be for people with a little bit more study or philosophical experience. But we'll mostly be focusing tonight on giving an overview of the Tuesday night 40-week course, sort of what it's about, what we cover and study, and different ways to participate, clarifying those. So, but first we're gonna practice together for a brief period of time, and I'm gonna turn it over to my friend Jackie Stewart, who's one of two assistant faculty members for the year-long program, the other one being Maho Kawachi. And Jackie's going to lead us in just a brief practice session of just about an hour and a half or so. Just kidding, just about 10 minutes or so before we give a little presentation, which will probably take about 20 minutes of what the course is and how people can participate. And then we want to leave the last 25 or so minutes for the questions that you might have about participation. So Jackie, do you want to grab the camera and microphone, and I will try to highlight you?
Yeah, thank you, Ethan. Good evening, everyone. It is a complete delight to be here with all of you. Hi. So why don't we just give ourselves a moment to settle in, get into a nice, comfortable position. You can let your hands rest on your legs or in your lap, whatever feels most supportive for you. Then go ahead and close your eyes, or if you'd rather practice with your eyes open, you can lower the gaze and find a soft focus. And let's begin by deepening the breath. Taking long, deep breaths into the body. And perhaps with each exhale, you could feel yourself begin to settle in more and more. Settling into your body, settling into this moment. And then allowing your breath to return to its natural rhythm, we'll just take some time to establish our posture here. So feeling your sit bones pressing down beneath you. Feeling some sense of connection to whatever surface you're sitting on. Maybe even feeling the weight of your body, the stability of your body. Just resting right here in this spot. And then from this solid base, feeling as though you could extend upward through the spine. And see if you can bring a lightness to your head and your shoulders as you find this balance of being able to sit in a way that's alert while also being relaxed. So we find this balance in our posture and our body, but also seeing if we can bring it into our attitude in the way that we practice. So there's an alertness, an ability to pay attention to our experience while maintaining a sense of ease or flexibility. Staying open to our present moment experience as it comes. We might even take a moment to connect with our motivation or our reason for showing up tonight. Maybe even being inspired by that again. What inspired me to come? And then bringing your attention to notice sensations happening in the body. So if you notice that there's tension anywhere, if it's available for you, seeing if you can relax that tension. Seeing if you can let it go. You might notice areas of discomfort in the body, tingling sensations, warmth or coolness. And without the need to change any of it, see if you can just witness, just be with whatever it is that's coming up. You might also notice sensations of your body breathing. So seeing if you can bring your attention to that feeling of the breath. You might notice it as a rising and falling of the belly, or air passing in and out of your nostrils, or an expansion and contraction of the chest. Allowing your attention to rest here on the feeling of breathing. That you might even make contact with the sensation of being soothed in some way by the breath. If you notice your mind at any point becomes distracted by thinking, seeing if you can just notice that and then gently redirecting your attention right back to this moment. So perhaps that's the feeling of your breath, your sit bones pressing down beneath you, or sensations in the body. And for the last few moments of our practice here, just allowing yourself to be. So not really needing to pay attention to anything in particular. Not needing to do or be any other way than however you are. Just giving yourself some space. And then in your own time, you can either lift the gaze or blink your eyes open. Take a moment here to notice how you feel. And as we check in with how we're feeling, we're not judging our practice in any way, not sort of judging it as good or bad. It's really just an honest moment to see how we're doing. To notice what's coming up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jackie. So I'm going to talk for about 20 minutes, just give a little overview. I was thinking today of, what a person who wants to do good for themselves or good in the world, what our motivation might be going into 2021. And one motivation might be that we really feel like I need to engage. I need to find a way to participate in and transform in some little way an experience of this madness. I think that's definitely a shared, I don't want to speak for everyone, but some level of seeing the world in a state of madness, chaos, injustice, I think is a very predominant experience as I talk to a lot of people. And so you might say, I don't really have time to work on any kind of self-awareness or we won't say self-improvement because that's a loaded concept, but self-awareness, insight, personal spirituality or personal psychology. I don't have time for that. And the other extreme might be, I need to get away from the madness. So I need to just kind of go into a bubble and find some way to lower my anxiety or stress level. And my feeling is we kind of need to do both. We need to work on both our personal development and the study of our own minds and our own being, and need to work on what is this world and how did it come to be in this state and how can I help, right? So there is a hope, if you find your mind sort of careening towards one of those extremes or back and forth between those extremes, there's a hope that we could actually find a kind of middle balance between just being completely avoidant of the world through our practice on the one hand, or being so engaged in whatever we need to do with our families, with our community, with our society, that we don't have any time for ourselves. And so I think, working with a deep commitment of 40 weeks, or 8 weeks at a time, as we'll take it, is a good way to make some time for ourselves, for sure, for our own study. But it's also a really good way to prepare for the world. And so really going to try to weave an engaged Buddhist perspective throughout what we do, even when we are talking about, classic Buddhist teachings on the just experience of a person in our own mind, sort of, I don't want to say isolated, but let's say distinct from other beings. How can I understand myself? How can I awaken to who I actually am? And the other thing I want to say is, there's so much you can study online that it falls into the camp of what we could just call the mindfulness movement, right? There's so many good resources now, so many good apps, a few of my favorites like 10% Happier, Insight Timer. I heard the app Calm is now worth $2 billion, which is insane. There's so many good kind of mindfulness apps for people who just want to have a little bit of a practice. But I do think, I think it's important to note that mindfulness comes from Buddhism. When you say the word mindfulness, you are referencing an aspect of the Buddhist teachings that's been sort of, secularized or externalized so that it could be accessible to a wider audience. And I think that's really wonderful. But when we just focus on mindfulness, we're just, scratching the surface of what the Buddhist tradition offers. And it's an ancient tradition as well as a modern tradition of philosophy, psychology, spirituality. So I think this course, is kind of a deep overview of a variety of Buddhist topics. Sometimes I think, since this is the third year that I've led it this way, I've been teaching meditation since 2001 and teaching Buddhist studies since 2002. But this is the third year that we've had this sort of structure of a 40-week course. And sometimes I think it's a little too much, the breadth and depth of the topics that we get into over the 40 weeks. But it's meant to be sort of a deep overview, and we record everything. If you feel like it's sort of, kind of my cup runneth over, that part of that is a little bit intentional to give us a real broad exposure to Buddhist topics, different Buddhist meditation techniques, and just Buddhism in conversation with a lot of other modern disciplines and fields. And the other thing I think, and this is especially true if one were to sign up for the year-long program, as opposed to just auditing the recordings and materials. I think this course is designed and has gotten better at sort of having a real sense of Sangha or community, and that sort of connection and camaraderie, and also accountability. I think a lot of times, if there's anybody here who struggles with consistency in your meditation practice, I don't know if that's anything that anybody on this call has ever felt. Tends to be pretty common experience among meditators. And a lot of times when people have a hard time being consistent, they think it's because they lack discipline. And it's actually, if you look at the way Buddhist teachings are arranged, and also if you look at, human psychology, usually our lack of consistency is because we lack community. We don't have anybody else who's a kind of pal in meditation who we can check in with, and who kind of inspires us, and a little bit, I mean this in a good way, holds us in check to remember our practice, remember what we're trying to do. So the Sangha or community component, I think, is, even though it's online, and I think at this point, a lot of us are completely zoomed out, it is great to be able to have friends who are practicing and studying similar material. And that becomes a feature, especially of the year-long program. So just a little bit about the structure of the course. We do touch on different Buddhist teachers who come from different Buddhist traditions. Some of the sources are ancient from the Asian heritage. Many of the sources of readings and so forth and thinkers are modern interpreters of Buddhist teachings. But the structure of the course is, which is basically the way the structure of my book, The Road Home, works, is arranged around looking at Buddhism in kind of four, you could say, movements, if this were music. And this is somewhat arranged around the way the Tantric Buddhist or Tibetan Buddhist tradition might arrange the bodies of study and practice, somewhat the way it was arranged in the Shambhala teachings, which is the lineage and tradition that I've most studied in, although I've studied different forms of Buddhism. And I think it gives a kind of complete cycle. We sometimes talk in Buddhism about cycles of teachings, which is a great word, because rather than thinking about studying this stuff as like climbing a ladder, which is the way a lot of our studies can feel in academia, or when there's a kind of bureaucratic or institutional, when we're going for a degree, there's this sense of climbing a ladder. But a cycle of teachings kind of takes us on a journey and then delivers us back to the beginning with a sense of a few more insights or experiences that the next time through the cycle we can deepen with, right? So we're never really getting to the top of the ladder. We just kind of wake up the next day with maybe a few more tools or insights into how to do our practice and how to be human. So it's broken into 5 8-week sections. There is a full 2-week gap between the end of one course or section and the start of the next, which is nice. We have a little time to absorb. So it's 8 weeks, then 2 weeks off. So what I mean by 2 weeks off is that the first class of course 2 will begin 3 weeks after the last class of course 1. Course 1 ends March 16. Course 2 begins April 6th. And the first course, which begins 2 weeks from tonight, is really looking at some of the earliest Buddhist teachings that begin the path. First, we talk about how to be a student, and then we look at how we work with basic mindfulness practice, sometimes called shamatha, mindfulness of body, and also mindfulness of emotions, using some of Tara Brach and other teachers' work. And then we go into some of the core teachings of early Buddhism, which I think some of you have probably, or many of you have probably some familiarity or heard of before. Things like the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, unpacking the meaning of karma and what that does and doesn't mean, the early Buddhist teachings on ethics, and the early Buddhist teachings on self and non-self. In the Tibetan Buddhist system, those teachings are sometimes referred to as Hinayana, which means something like the narrow or self-focused vehicle or self-focused body of teachings. The second course is sort of a bridge between what I said as when I talked about 4 movements, the first 2 of those, which is sort of looking at some of the early philosophies of mind and cognition in the Buddhist tradition, looking at a beautiful teaching called the 6 realms, and also working with loving kindness, also known as metta or maitri practice. So each course, we have a few different contemplative practices, but we have a different core practice. So moving from basic foundational mindfulness practice to loving kindness meditation. And that's a bridge with what is sometimes called the Mahayana or Bodhisattva path, where the inspiration expands to make our practice about compassion and the benefit of others. And the third course takes us fully into that, what's called the Bodhisattva path, with teachings on emptiness and compassion, 6 paramitas. And then the fourth course is an introduction to the Tantric teachings of Tibetan Buddhism. So we work with a visualization practice, a set of teachings called the nature of mind, and the sort of what is the spiritual significance of the tantric teachings. And then the fifth and final course is really our chance to look at how Buddhism intersects with the modern world through a lot of topics of, that one's actually quite fun, but we look at topics of Buddhism in relation to a lot of modern fields of inquiry, such as Buddhism and Western psychology, Buddhism and art and creativity, Buddhism and politics, Buddhism and economics, Buddhism and ecology. So a lot of top applied topics of engaged Buddhism are the fifth course. So that's kind of an overview of the year. And there's a lot in there, but there is a core thread of practice and helping build consistency with practice. And in a sense, the readings and talks and breakout groups and discussions are really, I don't know, kind of like I have a 3.5-year-old daughter, so I always think of things in terms of like the treat you get to make the kid do what she's supposed to be doing. So in some ways, the readings and teachings are kind of these interesting philosophical and spiritual components to help us stay inspired in our practice and working with our own mind. So there are 3 or 4 different ways to participate in the material. The first one, which I really encourage if you're able to, some of you are just not able to, but is to just commit to a year-long Sangha. And the year-long program has sort of the most of the community accountability components and also has a sense of actually completion through a certificate program. So if you participate in the year-long Sangha, we assign people to quads, which are groups of 4 or 5 that are kind of your practice buddies for the year that you have weekly or daily. It's up to each quad check-ins about how it's going to kind of support and cheerlead each other, and also kind of keep people gently coming back to their practice when we wander, which we all will. And we also have a discussion board for that can be very lively through the Slack app. And at the end of each 8-week section, we ask everybody in the year-long certificate program to answer review questions. So it's not too much time, but there is some sense of actually processing the material and reporting back, and also staying consistent with practice and having more Sangha support for doing so. So, I think if you're on the fence about that, what I would say is if you've taken too much on in previous years and you know that you're on the verge of taking too much on for 2021, then I'd say, maybe don't do that. But if you're the kind of person who's sort of on the fence and is saying like, do I want to commit to this? Or I would say maybe do it, to just have that sense of, jumping in and saying, okay, I'm going to do it. And it won't be too oppressive in terms of a time or energy commitment, but there will be a consistency to the program that is meaningful, and I think will help us really deepen the roots of our practice and study. You can decide if you want to be part of the year-long certificate program up until the beginning of the second course. So there is a on-ramp. So that being said, the second way to participate is to take it course by course and attend live, but just sign up for one 8-week segment. And again, if you sign up for the first 8-week segment and then say, okay, I want to do the year-long thing, then we can work that out at the beginning of the second course, and you would then be assigned to a quad, and all of the other functions and features of the year-long Sangha would happen then. So course by course is another way to do it. If you know you're not going to be available on Tuesday nights ever, or you just want to work through the material at your own pace, you can audit the course, in which case you wouldn't attend live, but you would just have access to the audio video recordings of each class and the PDFs and the syllabus, and you could work through the practices and material at your own pace. And we're adding one final way to access the material. We've already had a few requests of people who know they can't attend live, but would like to be part of quads, would like to get the certificate and the sense of completion to the program. So we're also offering, if you're in a time zone where you're never going to be able to participate, or you have a pre-existing commitment at that time on Tuesdays, you can audit and be part of the certificate program and be part of quads and the discussion board and answering accountable for the review questions and so forth. So that's about it. Oh, one more thing is we're trying to accommodate everybody's request for scholarship. So please don't be afraid to reach out if you need financial help paying for the program. We're really trying to make it work for everybody. We've fundraised a little bit to get a little extra scholarship support. So please email either info@ethannichtern.com or info@nowyogany.com. I'll put these in the chat box after I'm done speaking, and you can we'll try to make it work. And if you don't need a scholarship, please don't ask for one, because we really do want to make it work for everybody. But if you do need financial help and you want to participate, please don't be shy about contacting us. So I think that's everything I wanted to share. Wanted to just introduce, because I think everybody is here. You all already met Jackie Stewart, who's one of the 2 assistant faculty for the program, and my dear friend Maho Kawachi is the other assistant faculty. I don't know if Maho, you would just want to say a quick hello. I'm gonna remove my spotlight so you can, if you want to.
Hi. So my name is Maho, and I'm one of the assistant teachers and for the throughout this year. So I'm looking forward to meeting you virtually, and then also emails and so forth.
Thank you so much, Maho. At this point, would love to leave it open for questions that you might have for the remainder of the time, and we will end at 8 p.m. Eastern, so you can always email us if you have further questions. And I'm just going to give us the 2 emails, info@ethannichtern.com, and either I or Zoe, my assistant, will get back to you. And maybe it would be better to send questions about the course content there. And if you have questions about registration and so forth, info@nowyogany, which is hosting us again this year wonderfully. And I believe Renata's here on the call as well, but those questions can go there. Yeah, so what's on your mind? If you want to either type into the chat box or grab the microphone, please do. And if there aren't any questions, that I always get scared when that happens. So yes, I see hand raised, Stacy.
Hi there. Thank you for doing this tonight. When you talked about that third option, I actually teach a yoga class on Tuesday nights at the exact same time every other week. So I wouldn't be able to attend as often as I would prefer to live to really keep up with the community. But the third option you talked about with doing an audit, but being able to be part of the community, could you talk a little bit more about how that would work?
Yeah, so it's basically, thank you for that. And it seems like a smart new option that we started thinking about that because we were getting requests from Europe, people who, 7 to 9 p.m., which by the way are the hours. I saw one question in the chat box. So classes from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesdays. That would be 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. So they couldn't do it. So basically the only difference is you are not at the live class on Tuesday nights. The audio and video recordings will put up online. We've been using Dropbox. We may shift to another online resource, and we put them up on a private link on YouTube as well. So those will be up by Wednesday, and then you would still be assigned to a quad and would have access to the discussion board that I'm hoping is very active this year. And then you'd be responsible for answering the review questions at the end of each 8-week segment. And then you would, receive a certificate at the end of the year. So it's basically the only difference is you never attend the live classes or Sangha gatherings. I'm just going to try to go down the chat box here. Okay. So for the first course, we are using 3 books that these are, you could put them in the category of highly suggested readings. We're still trying to work out, because people are in all different locations, how book sharing might work. But the first one, which we'll return to little by little throughout the course, is The Road Home by me. The second one is a book by a modern, and I believe those of you who've already registered have received these 3 books already. A book by modern Theravadan lineage monk, who's actually a really cool guy, named Bhikkhu Bodhi, called The Noble Eightfold Path. So I'm just going to type these into the chat box. And the third, which brings more of a sense of, which we'll turn to in the third course, more of a sense of the social modern imperative, which we'll have a few readings from, is the book of essays, Radical Dharma, by Reverend Angel Kyoto Williams, Lama Rod Owens, and Yasmin Saidullah. So The Noble Eightfold Path by Bhikkhu Bodhi. Radical Dharma. So those are the 3 books we'll be using. If if you can only afford one, or if you can't afford the books, you can email me, and I'm happy to send you a PDF version of my book if anybody's in financial difficulty. Just don't tell my publisher, and don't put it on the internet if that's okay. Honor system, but we don't have those versions of the other 2 books. So again, these are just highly suggested. There'll also be a few PDF readings as we move throughout the 8 weeks that are on the syllabus, and those will be on available for you on our Dropbox or Google Drive, whatever it ends up being. So you have access to those. Okay. Okay. So there are, yes, answered all those questions. Yes, if you take the first course and then decide to enroll in the full program, you would join a quad at that point. Thomas is asking, there are payment plans, so email info@nowyoga.ny.com if you have questions on that. the course will be held all this year on Zoom, regardless of what happens with COVID. Although, if there is something that happens to allow people to meet in person, we're contemplating a in-person retreat, which would be additional, but that might be really nice. And the certification is just a certificate, you know, a nice certificate saying you did the program. Meredith is asking, will there be oversight of the quads? Yes, we're trying to work with the quads in a way that it's gentle, but also there's some sense of being held, let's say, at the same time. And so we're going to ask each quad to choose a sort of captain who kind of is responsible for keeping track of everybody. And if somebody goes missing, to just sort of check in with them, see how they're doing. And then the sort of administrative overview of the quads, Maho will be in charge of that. She is going to be the quad empress, which was the title we came up with. We don't really have a title, so I just thought that was funny. And so you can miss an occasional Tuesday. In the previous 2 years, it's rare that somebody attended all 40 weeks. So everything is recorded, but please don't make the fact that everything is recorded a reason to be, sloppy in one's attendance. So we're trying to make everything available because we live busy lives. And besides the review questions, there aren't any other projects other than the quad participation. We've actually found that people, that's enough, other than keeping up with the quads and keeping up with the readings and revisiting the readings when people get behind, and working with one's own practice. So there aren't any other projects that students return to us. So I'll be giving instruction, and the assistant teachers and perhaps an occasional guest teacher will be coming in as well. But I'll be there every single Tuesday, the 40 Tuesdays. And the books are not shipped out by us. We don't have the books, so you have to get them from. I can help you figure out how to get the road home, but the other ones, you have to figure out how to get. So, yes, if you're auditing, you have access to all the online material. Average amount of time involved per week is the 2-hour class, and then your practice, which could be 10 minutes a day, and readings, could take an hour. So if you were like an A+ student, I would say maybe 4 hours a week, or, if your practice is longer, it could be, 6 hours a week. That's to a certain degree up to you. I would say it's a little bit up to you, but, people take it at their own pace. And even as we try to offer support and accountability, life happens and people do what they're going to do. I'm going to just pause because I'm seeing that there's more and more questions coming in, and Jen has had a hand up for a while. So Jen, do you want to?
You're
jump
so
in?
sweet. Thank you. I actually just typed it
Okay.
because I realized that's what people are doing. I was curious if there are like weekly meditation recommendations that go along with the readings, or like personal reflection element to the course, or if it's mostly didactic and then the practice element is self-driven.
Yeah. The practice element is self-driven, but the quads are meant to help with that. But we do work with meditation techniques. Like in the first course, we primarily are working with shamatha, or mindfulness of body meditation and mindfulness of emotions, and then bring in a few extra contemplations, like a contemplation of the Four Noble Truths and contemplation of karma and things like that. In the second course, we really work with loving kindness meditation as the main practice. In the third course, we work with Tonglen, which is a Tibetan-based compassion meditation. So, yeah.
So it does sound like there is kind of an evolution, or like a course of different meditation practices that go along with what kind of the course of study at the time.
Yes, that's
perfect.
My approach and the way I was taught is you really have to balance those two at all moments, and it can,
Beautiful.
you know, these I find that some people are, you know, headier, geekier, I think is the I'm glad that that's become like a positive term. It wasn't when I could have really used geek to be a positive thing when I was in high school. But I'm glad eventually it's become a more positive thing. So some of us are a little geekier, and some of us are a little bit more averse to the headier intellectual material. And my sense is it's really helpful to do both and balance both. But practice always drives the way. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Leslie's question is, in what ways will this course help me sort out the differences between the different traditions? I imagine that you mean sort of the different practice and study traditions, Leslie, within Buddhism, like Theravada or Zen or Tibetan or Tantric Buddhism. And we're going to have readings and teachings from different traditions for sure. Definitely the tradition that I've done the most study and practice is the Tibetan Tantric tradition, but I have studied a lot of insight meditation and Theravadan Buddhism, and a little bit of Zen as well. So we will try to draw out the similarities and differences in approaches, and look at how they are, you know, similar or different. So that's definitely, I think that is one piece of this course that I'm proud of, is that we do use different readings that come from different traditions, because often when you go to a Buddhist center, there's really a centering of, you know, whatever the philosophical or practice material of that tradition is. In recent years, we have had people be with the same quad for the whole year. People usually appreciate that because you really build a sense of friendship and camaraderie, and people who support. If somebody has, you know, an issue with their quad, we will have at the first class some basic community agreements about how we all participate together. But if somebody's like, I don't relate to my quad, or can I check out a new quad, we can definitely help, you know, make that happen. So you're not stuck in a situation, but most people do commit to the quad for the whole year. So the review questions to Stephen's question are given after each 8-week segment, and there's not any official due date on when you turn those in. You know, to do justice to the material, there's, you know, each of these topics, there's also other things one can study. So it's, you know, again, this is not a situation where we are in grad school or, you know, being graded in some way. I did for several years teach a college course at the New School on Buddhist meditation, and had to find a way to grade undergraduate students, you know, in Buddhism, which, you know, feels sort of ironic, if not frictional. But you know, I would say it's, you know, an hour of reading a week on average. If one was to, you know, completely do the reading, is probably the case. Maybe a little bit less than that. Yeah, there will be new books introduced in each course, but usually just 1 or 2. And we'll again try our best to share the resources and draw out the material and also have a lot of material that's actually shared in PDFs. Yeah, I mean, if you're not deeply familiar with some of the concepts, I feel like there's a wide range of familiarity already, and I think that's completely okay. And there's not one source. I mean, I think I hate to say it, but I think the book to read, if you're not deeply familiar, and I'm not just doing a plug here, but is the Road Home would be the best familiarizing text. But I also think, you know, there are going to be some people in this course, as there have been the last 2 years, who've, you know, studied in different traditions for 20 years. And there's going to be some people who started meditating last year and got connected with it and said, you know, I want to learn more about Buddhism. So, yeah. Stephanie, you should have received the 3 books that I mentioned, in terms of that those are the 3 books that we're working with, but the syllabus will be sent out next week. So that's what you should have received. And the class does not start next Tuesday. It starts the following Tuesday, the 26th. Melinda's asking for the third option, auditing, and I'm not sure if she's talking about auditing. Oh yeah, auditing and still being placed in a quad. That is a lower price than a full certificate program. Email us if you're interested in that option, and we'll get back to you quickly. A typical structuring of the 2 hours is opening guided meditation, which will usually be 25 to 30 minutes. Then talk or lecture about the week's material. Then we do breakout groups, which are like mini quads, but not with your typical quad members, where there's some discussion questions based on the talk, so that everybody has a chance to have their voice be in the space. And then we have a large group discussion for the last bit of class. If you audit, is there ever a chance to ask a burning question? If you audit with the certificate, all the burning questions we're going to ask people to bring to the discussion board, so everybody can share, unless it's a deeply personal matter, obviously, about one's own personal, life situation or psychological situation. We wouldn't share that, but the way to do that is to email us. If you're not in the certificate program. But I think the audit with certificate program is a really good new option. And I've taught that. This is the 3rd time that I've taught this program. This program started in 2019, entirely online, and then 2020 we started doing it in a hybrid in person at Now Yoga, which is on 9th Street and 4th Avenue here in New York City. But people could still participate online. And then this thing happened in March. Can't remember the name of it. So we went to an entirely online format, and then decided to do it online again, so people could participate wherever they are this year. Quads doing daily check-ins would not be via Zoom. So we're going to give the quads the option to decide how much accountability you want with each other. It could just be, if you want daily check-ins, that could just be a 1-line email that you send to your quad mates, like, meditated, my back hurt, today feels awful, feeling great joy today, so it could be really quick check-ins, or it could be a weekly check-in where you write a little bit more. But you all can decide how you want to communicate with each other, whether that's, email, or you want to give each other. We'll give the people in each quad email information just of the other quad members. But then you all can decide, like, what the best way to stay in touch is. But it wouldn't be like a face-to-face check-in. It can be really simple. It's just like reminding each other that you're on the path together, and maybe that you practice. Yeah. So I think the full year program is, the full price is $10.95 for the in-person year-long certificate program. And the deadline to register, we are not doing a drop-in week by week option this year, but you know, the deadline to register, the first course starts January 26th. So it would be good to register by then. And if you, if you need to register later than that, you can contact us, and we will probably be taking people entering later, and a few people definitely will be coming in and joining for the live group each course who aren't in the year-long program. Yes, I believe, Jody, what you're saying is correct. So that if you do the first course, you would just pay, and then decide to join the year-long program, you would pay the difference. David, right now, I mean, unless everybody on this call signs up, which would be great if that's the interest level, I don't expect that. We're not at capacity. My guess is for the year-long certificate program, the kind of core Sangha, will end up with somewhere between 30 and 50 people. So I wouldn't want to work with too much more than that. But, you know, people can join, a lot more people end up auditing. So, yeah. And these ways to participate are on the website material, both on my website and on Now Yoga NY's website as well. So classes in the past have been somewhere along between 30 and 50 people, the actual live version. So that seems to be about where we're headed this year as well. All right. Yes, one more question, then we'll close.
One last quick clarification. The email addresses you gave us earlier, the one that's info@Ethan, and then the one that's info@Now Yoga, which questions do we direct to which?
Yeah, registration questions can go to Now Yoga, the info@nowyoga.ny.com, and questions about the content of the course, if you have, can go to info@ethannichtern.com. All right. Thank you all so much. Really hope to see everyone on the 26th. And if I don't see you, I hope you found something else fulfilling to do. Yeah, it'll be, I'm looking forward to the year. This has become a really fulfilling thing for me to do as well. So I always look forward to it. And thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Maho. Thank you, Renata at Now Yoga, and thank you, Zoe. And that's kind of, the five of us are kind of the team. So we'll all be around. And yeah, hope to see you 2 weeks from tonight. Same time and place, except we'll go a little bit later. All right. Bye-bye for now.